Mira que ya viene la revolución, para que se asustan será pa' mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando, ¡viva la revolución!
Iranian nuclear weapons development.
They have turned the island into a communist hellhole.
The experiment in Venezuela has failed completely.
La bestialidad imperialista. Bestialidad que no tiene una frontera determinada ni pertenece a un país determinado. Bestias fueron las hordas hitleristas, como bestias son los norteamericanos hoy, como bestias son los paracaidistas belgas, como bestias fueron los imperialistas franceses en Argelia. Porque es la naturaleza del imperialismo la que bestializa a los hombres, la que la convierte en fieras sedientas de sangre que están dispuestas a degollar, a asesinar, a destruir hasta la última imagen de un revolucionario, de un partidario de un régimen que haya caído bajo su bota o que luche por su libertad. Y la estatua que recuerda a Lumumba, hoy destruida pero mañana reconstruida, nos recuerda también en la historia trágica de ese mártir de la revolución del mundo, que no se puede confiar en el imperialismo, pero ni tantito así, nada.
Vamos todos con Xiomara, viva Libre, viva Xiomara Castro de Celaya, la presidenta de Honduras, the new president of Honduras. Long live the movement toward socialism in Honduras. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 58, Unmasking Imperialism, Exposing Imperialist Propaganda in Mainstream Media. And today we are discussing the rise of a new left-wing government in Honduras and resistance to Western imperialism. We're going to talk about the inauguration of our new president, Xiomara Castro de Celaya, the wife of former President Manuel Zelaya, who 12 years ago was removed in a violent U.S.-backed coup, 12 years of neoliberalism, of state violence, of drug gangs, narco gangs, all sorts of crazy capitalist destruction that Honduras has been going through, murders, everything, femicide, privatization, and now finally, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, the people of Honduras have put into place, have organized a new government, Partido Libre, the Liberty and Refoundation Party, led by Presidenta Xiomara Castro, to bring the country out of the crisis and chaos of capitalism and the so-called free market. During today's episode, we're going to speak with comrades who are on the ground now, and you're familiar with these two comrades who are professional revolutionaries, constantly traveling, constantly serving the people, going lower and deeper, as Vladimir Lenin said himself, and they're in Honduras, as well as a good compañero of mine who I've known for many years, who has been active in the Honduran Solidarity movement for many years. And we're going to talk about the latest, what happened with the inauguration this week, with the threats against Xiomara Castro Zelaya already, right? Because the empire never sleeps. The imperialists never sleep. They always will try to undermine and sabotage any progressive program under the boot of imperialism. So we're going to discuss that, internal traitors and external agitators. And joining me today, let's start off with compañero Raymond Sánchez, who is a Honduran journalist, activist, poet, and human rights defender for Honduran migrants in the United States. He's a member of Partido Libre and served as coordinator of its diaspora collective in Los Angeles, California. How's it going, compañero Raymond?
First of all, I wanted to thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for inviting me. And I want to say hello to the comrades. I really appreciate that you invited me to participate over here so we can speak about what's going on and, exchange different ideas and opinions regarding our situation in Honduras.
Thank you so much, Raymond. And Raymond is a very cool guy. He's somebody who is very talented in the arts and writing and organizing, and very hardworking guy, very humble guy. So I'm honored to have him. And again, somebody who has been active in the Honduran Solidarity movement in Libre way before the party blew up, before it got big, organizing since the coup, since many years. So I'm honored to have him here. Also joining us is Comrade Libre, a regular on Unmasking Imperialism. Comrade Libre is an Afro-Boricua poet, organizer, and communist based out of Miami, Florida, whose organizing involves moving theory into practice. As a member of the Troika Kollective, shout out to the Troika Kollective, they organize in their communities, and as internationalists, they build with movements in the global south and across Turtle Island. And Comrade Libre is in Honduras now and attended Xiomara's inauguration. How's it going, Comrade Libre? Beautiful.
Everything is amazing. I'll make it simple for now. We'll dive into the details, but I'm super excited to be here on the ground, to be here for this historic moment that is part of a process to create Honduras for Hondureños, Hondureñas, Hondureñas. So this is a beautiful thing to be here to witness. And we've been getting so much experience talking with people that have been part of La Lucha for this particular moment, people that have made a lot of sacrifices, and we have to recognize and acknowledge that this moment only exists because a popular movement happened where a lot of people had to make a lot of sacrifices. And so I am so grateful and appreciative to be in Honduras. And I'm also here to, as Unmasking Imperialism says, right, to not just talk about why it's important to be here, but also to fight the imperialist lies that are going to be told about this process.
Most definitely, Comrade Libre. I really appreciate that. And you're somebody who's always traveling, always putting in work, always meeting with people, whether it's Nicaragua or Honduras or Puerto Rico. And it's really great to have you. And it's really cool to see you just meeting all these different solidarity revolutionary movements across Nuestra America and linking these struggles together, because they are all interconnected at the end of the day. And as Lenin said, the revolution is a proletarian internationalist revolution. And the cooperation of all peoples around the world is needed. Last but not least, compañera Aminta Sea is a sociologist and researcher with the Friends of the ATC, the Rural Workers Association of Nicaragua. She's also part of Troika Kollective, U.S.-born Nicaraguan Palestinian, currently based in Managua, Nicaragua. And Aminta is also in Honduras right now and attended Xiomara's inauguration. How's it going, Aminta?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me back on the show. I think more than anything, como nicaragüense, como centroamericana, I am so excited and I feel so honored that this has been my first trip to Honduras, and it will certainly not be the last. Being able to connect and learn from Hondureños, people who have really been fighting to end these 12 years of narco dictatorship. And so being able to attend Xiomara's inauguration and to be able to connect with so many Hondureños, Hondureñas has been such a tremendous blessing, and I am so excited. For January, for Libre and I collectively, this was 2 inaugurations. We attended Ortega's, we attended Xiomara's, and so what an exciting turn for Latin America, and what an exciting turn for Central America too as a region. So I'm excited to really get to share and chat more and see what this year is going to bring.
Most definitely. And David Soberg said, I love her Libre party hat. We got to get one for Comrade Libre too, since it has their name on it. Get the Libre flag. The branding will be, we're going to start branding Comrade Libre with the Libre party from Honduras. Really beautiful branding and symbolism. It's just exciting to see the upsurge of socialist, revolutionary sentiment, anti-capitalist sentiment. You have in the United States all these idiots, all these right-wingers who say every time socialism has been tried, it's always failed. We can say that about capitalism, right? Look at what the last 12 years in Honduras brought. It was free market neoliberalism, capitalism, and it brought utter destruction, murder, violence, chaos. This is proof that capitalism doesn't work. Capitalism is the crisis, as Karl Marx explains in his 3-volume work on Capital, and many other revolutionaries. And socialism, collectivism, working together, lifting from the bottom up is the way out of crisis. And I think it's something that is very important to mention. And before we start, I also want to share some of these beautiful pictures that the comrades sent to us before when they started. Comrade Libre smoking a blunt. No, I'm just playing a cigar. And Comrade Aminta, and also Compañero Darwin, who's also from Honduras, and some of the other compañeros from Nicaragua with the ATC as well. You guys look like you guys were having a blast. I wish I was there with y'all, but I was there in spirit with you guys. And then you guys also eating some delicious baleadas for breakfast out there. Thank you for sending those pictures. It's cool to share that. And it looks like a really great revolutionary celebration that took place in general. So what I want to do is I want to play a clip from, this is a clip from Xiomara Castro de Celaya's inauguration speech. Again, she was inaugurated last week. I think it was on Monday. I forget the exact date, but basically a few days ago, she was inaugurated in Honduras. And this is a clip of her speech where she announces free electricity for the poor. This is a big deal. To those of us in the United States, it sounds like whatever, but Honduras is the poorest country in Latin America and the Caribbean after Haiti. A lot of the country is not electrified. A lot of the internet connection, it's very rough, right? Honduras is a very impoverished country because of capitalism and imperialism. So announcing free electricity for the poor in Honduras is a very big deal and won the support of a lot of people. So I'm going to play this clip, and then we're going to start off with Compañero Raymond to talk about the significance of Xiomara's speech and what's next for Honduras.
Ordeno que más de 1 millón de familias que viven en pobreza y consumen menos de 150 kilowatts por mes, a partir de este día no pagarán más la factura del consumo de energía. La luz será gratis en sus hogares. como esta decisión significa un costo más para la empresa nacional de energía eléctrica, los altos consumidores deberán asumir un precio en su factura para subsidiar la energía que daremos gratis a los pobres de Honduras.
By the way, shout out to Gausetsu News for posting that. A lot of great content from the Honduras inauguration in English. And just a really amazing speech. For those of you who are listening, she was saying basically that the rich have to pay their part to provide, to subsidize the cost of electricity for the poor. Nobody should be without power and electricity as a basic human right. And so many other amazing progressive developments that were announced during Xiomara's speech, talking about getting rid of impunity, where narco gangs and corrupt politicians get away with murders and violence, getting rid of this idea that the free market and the invisible hand should control everything, promoting the idea of made in Honduras and coming back to our roots, promoting what is indigenous to our lands and not depending on foreign corporations, getting rid of free trade zones that were promoted, the sedes that were promoted by the right-wing National Party. Compañero Raymond, you know, your analysis and reaction of the inauguration, I think you were, you know, you had wanted to attend, unfortunately we're not able to, but what was your analysis of the speech and just everything overall?
Yeah, thank you, Ramiro. Yeah, I was supposed to go to Honduras. I had an invitation. And unfortunately, I couldn't go because just a few weeks before I came out positive with COVID. So it was really impossible for me to go to Honduras. And I saw everything from the distance as the same way we've been seeing it from the distance for so long, which it kind of was emotional for me not to be there in this special moment. A special moment for me that ended up with Xiomara speaking to the people, but it takes me back to the golpe de Estado, and I remember Xiomara being the one in the streets in front of the people, and to see this whole journey that it took so many years from her to literally walk on the streets and then to create from the streets a political party to participate in politics and to take power back. That just give me the chills to see when the people never give up. I even wrote a song that I sent it to you. It's called Honduras No Te Rindas, where he asked about that don't give up. And I wrote that song. Half of the song, when I was writing it, I was crying because it was the day when we had a huge amount of people in Tegucigalpa in front of the Mario Hotel, and they set up the people, and they broke the windows of the hotel, and they arrested so many leaders, and they were trying to like make the movement look bad, and they tried different kind of a bad strategies to like literally show the world that we were the bad people. But to see Xiomara in front of the people and expressing herself and also promising some stuff, it just made me feel very good. I just like to clarify that the poor in Honduras really deserve to have a president like Xiomara Castro de Zelaya. And the people that are not going to pay electricity is not poor. It's people who really lives beyond poor. It's people who lives in misery. There's two things. One thing is to be poor and another one is to be living in misery. And there's a huge percentage of the Honduras population that lives in misery. And I think there is hope for these people. There is hope for us. But we have to be very clear about it, Ramiro, and the other cameras. It's not going to happen one day to another. We have to be patient. We have to start working now, fully focused, but it's not going to be magical. Let's be real. the country in these 12 years went up from, I can't recall the number. The Zelaya left it in the debt, but now it's like $20,000 million that we owe to, like, that we have to pay. And then putting on that, when the Cachurecos, nacionalistas left the power right now, they left the country in ruins. So it's a lot of work that you have ahead, and we have to be a little bit patient. We have to back her up, support her, but don't expect that it's going to be one change from one day to another. She's not going to make magic.
That's such a great point, compañero Raymond. And that's exactly the experience of somebody who's been in the movement for many years, because a lot of times younger communists or younger left-wing activists, they want things immediately, right? And even Lenin talks about this in his debates with the anarchists after the Russian Revolution. And there's also a great pamphlet by Lenin where he talks about ultra-leftism and infantile disorder, where the anarchists and some of the people who are more on the ultra-left wanted things immediately. And it's a process, like Raymond said, it's a dialectical process that takes many years to build. This is now the time when they need the most solidarity, when they're going to revamp the political structure, revamp the economic structure. And it's not like when you take power, you get a magic wand and you immediately get to decide, okay, I want this, we're going to get rid of this debt, just like that. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that, right? So now is the time to be in solidarity with Libre, with Honduras, with Xiomara, because there's a lot of problems to confront. You know, the debt that Raymond mentioned, the U.S. military bases, right? Honduras has the more U.S. military bases in Central America, one of the most in the region. And drug gangs, right? You're touching some very powerful figures when we're talking about the drug routes. Over 90% of cocaine that enters the U.S. goes through Honduras first. And so we're talking about some really big problems. And I'm confident that Xiomara and Libre can get rid of them. But we also need patience and solidarity when we're talking about all these issues. Comrade Libre, what has it been like for you? You were there at the inauguration. What was it like for you? Tell us about your experience at the inauguration. And what was the reaction like on the ground?
First of all, I want to say thank you to Camarada Raymond and all the Hondurans that have been in this fight. We're here observing part of a process that, like I said, it takes a lot of sacrifice. And why am I saying that? And I'm going to continue saying that. It's because being here on the ground and being in Honduras, we have been interviewing people that literally have had family killed, that have been political prisoners, people that still can't be seen in public because of the role that they played in this revolutionary process that has moved Honduras away from a narco dictatorship towards a democracy that is in the process of creating Honduras for Hondurans. But again, it is a process, and it's not a perfect process, and there is the necessity, and this is what we have observed. There's a necessity. First of all, we recognize that this is a popular movement, right? The only reason why Xiomara is in power, not the only reason, part of the reason is that los jóvenes, the young people, have taken on this revolutionary task of supporting a popular movement to create an Honduras that they want to live in. A lot of the reason and a lot of the strength of the Partido Libre comes from the student movement. People that weren't able to vote in previous elections, that have been moving in political development and forming themselves in these student popular movements. And so it's been so beautiful. We've been able to talk with young people and older people that have been in the struggle like before 12 years ago, right? Like Chele and Los Necios that have really been in this revolutionary process of being patient and organizing, and not just thinking that from one election to the other, we're going to get someone elected and that's it. It's like, no, this is a process, and Partido Libre, since 2009, has been in a process of building towards this moment, this particular moment. And so to see, to be here and to witness, and also to talk to people and hear about the struggle, it's just, it's very humbling to see that these people, and it just makes me very emotional. But like, these people have literally sacrificed so much, and it's so humbling to come to a place and feel at home when I know that in the past people have come here and had negative experiences because of the conditions that Honduras was subject to under imperialism. And so this revolutionary process is one that really hits home, because as a Boricua, like, we're in a revolutionary fight. And so seeing Honduras be able to have this victory after so many years of so much sacrifice is just a beautiful thing.
Wow, powerful. Thank you so much, Comrade Libre, for those beautiful words. And it is very inspiring, because when we talk about David and Goliath, like, we talk about countries like Honduras, Boriquén, Puerto Rico, Nicaragua. We're talking about some of the smallest, most impoverished, underdog nations fighting against the empire, the biggest empire in the history of humanity, and still coming out and surviving and resisting. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's very inspirational. It just shows that no matter how small of a nation you are, no matter how oppressed and colonized, that fire of resistance always lives on. It always continues. And it's an inspiration to everyone around the world. It also reminds me of the DPRK as well, a very small, impoverished nation that, no matter what, despite the humiliation, despite the attacks, continues to resist U.S. imperialism. Compañera Aminta, you're from Nicaragua. You're obviously in a nation, revolutionary nation, that has a long, beautiful history of Sandinismo, of the FSLN. And, I always used to joke around with you that Honduras politically was like 20 years behind Nicaragua in terms of mass organizing. But it seems like finally we've taken this leap, this amazing advancement, where now we have a party that is in power, that finally represents the masses and the people. What was your experience like as a Nica in Honduras at this inauguration? And what do you see for the future of Honduras-Nicaragua relations now that we have these two progressive socialist democratic governments in power?
So I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind is when I think about Nicaragua, especially working with the HEC, I'm always in constant communication with campesina women, many women who put their bodies on the line, sin la mujer tampoco hay una revolución. And so, and I hear about the decades of struggle. It has taken Nicaragua 40 years. It has taken us to fight against the neoliberal period, to go and fight during the Contra War, to be able to really bear the fruits of our revolutionary process. And as we know, as scientific socialists, that process is continuing to be developed, continuing to be nurtured. And so when I speak, I was at a La Via Campesina meeting with many campesinas from throughout Honduras, and had the opportunity to speak to them one-on-one, gather interviews. My biggest takeaway really was seeing the ways in which these women have been capable to progress the struggle. I mean, let's think about Berta Cáceres, for example, who, during Xiomara's inauguration, that was a name that was echoed, not just through the inauguration, to be fair, throughout this entire week that I've been here. And so with that being said, I think that there's a long road that comes ahead, but it is hope and it is resilience that will lead the Honduran people forward. And I think further, we really see the ways in which Xiomara, is obviously taking a socialist stance, talking about, creating a socialist state of Honduras during her inauguration. I am incredibly optimistic and hopeful that Honduras will be able to really strengthen its relations with Nicaragua. Obviously, we're not going to see this happen overnight. I mean, I think about how just recently Nicaragua was able to reestablish its relations with China. That has taken some time, to play the game of diplomacy. Sometimes, unfortunately, you can't just go ahead and take that leap and say, I'm just gonna do X, Y, and Z, right? And that's why, for instance, we had, I don't think that anybody really wanted to see Kamala Harris at the inauguration. You had people in the crowd saying, where'd I go? Like, we know, like, there's one thing that's really stuck with me throughout this entire time that I've been in Honduras is talking to people and seeing the revolutionary class consciousness that is so strong in the country. That has been so optimistic. That brings me so much optimism. That brings me so much excitement. And, really como que me activa and really pushes me to want to come visit my neighbors just a little up north. It's just a bus ride away, right? And so, with that being said, I am incredibly hopeful. I think that also for El Campesinado here in Honduras, really seeing the fight for agrarian reform. Like I said, in Nicaragua, agrarian reform wasn't achieved overnight. These things take time. But it is with these steps that help us create even stronger foundation, right? Because people have been fighting, people have been in revolutionary struggle since prior to these 12 years of narco dictatorship. And so Honduras has that revolutionary history that needs to be brought to light more. Let's think about the fight against banana republics that occurred in Honduras, specifically in San Pedro Sula. San Pedro Sula is a very revolutionary city. It has a lot of history when it comes towards labor organizing. This is the tierra of Francisco Morazan, right? Like, this is a country that has so much to really offer and so much that we can learn from. And, I feel something so beautiful and so spiritually rejuvenating, in the sense that when I get to share with compañeros, not just compas from Honduras, I mean, part of it having an international delegation is that you're able to share experiences and learn alongside people from many different countries, and having a chance to speak to revolutionaries from around Mesoamerica and talking about the importance of having a Foro Mesoamericano. If you were to tell me that I would have the opportunity to have a seat at the table at a conversation like that when I'm 13, and I used to feel embarrassed to be Central American. Obviously, I don't feel that now. I rep Nicaragua hard. I love being Central American. I love, our culture. I love nuestra lucha. I love so much about being Central American, and I'm so proud. But it's like, if you were to tell me in that moment that I would be able to have this experience, I mean, for me, it's just so incredibly moving. I'm so excited. And even to enter certain spaces, we went to Café Paraíso and really getting to share with compañeros. This is a revolutionary coffee shop that, is in Tegucigalpa, and getting to talk to, young writers. I've met so many sociologists here too. Like, quick anecdote, I was like, wow, like, maybe I need to post up here more, because I don't know that many sociologists in Nicaragua, but I was like, cool. Like, it's just there's just a lot of great activity moving forward, and I'm so beyond grateful that I've been able to be here in Honduras for such a historical moment. And that solidarity is really just it's just so crucial and so important. I really want people to keep their eyes on Honduras, because things aren't going to be easy. You have 12 years of narco dictatorship, and you need to do a lot of strategizing and organizing to be able to combat the right wing that, they tried to have a parliamentary coup attempt. They tried to, delegitimize Xiomara and Partido Libre and make things even more difficult, right, for working class, for poor Hondurans. So those are, I think, most of my takeaways. But more than anything, I'm incredibly excited to see that unification between Honduras and Nicaragua. Someone in a cab, a cab driver asked me, like, "Oh, you're from Nicaragua? Are you Sandinista?" I was like, "Of course I am. I'm there with my comandante." So people are definitely excited, and it's just been a really incredible experience.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, compañera Aminta. I'm glad you mentioned the giant corporations, the United Fruit Company. The term banana republic actually comes from Honduras in the 40s and 50s when you had the United Fruit Company that had a monopoly all over Central America, the Caribbean, and Northern South America. And the term banana republic was first used in reference to Honduras, basically referencing the fact that this whole nation was pillaged and dominated by one company, the United Fruit Company, which totally took control of the market, which extracted the resources and labor of the Honduran people and took those resources back to the US, to all over the world. And it's interesting because Ernesto Che Guevara, somebody who I'm sure is of inspiration to all of us, somebody who even on Comrade Libre's hat, Ernesto Che Guevara passed by. We know about his journeys across Latin America. One of his most formative journeys was actually in Honduras and in Guatemala in 1953. There's a very beautiful quote before landing and arriving to Guatemala, where he ended up living under the progressive government of Jacobo Arbenz. He passed by Honduras, he passed by Tela, San Pedro Sula, all those banana plantation areas, and visited the plantations of the United Fruit Company. And this is Che Guevara's quote, passing by Honduras in 1953. Quote, "I have sworn before a portrait of the late lamented Comrade Stalin that I will not rest until I see these capitalist octopuses annihilated." Very beautiful, powerful quote. And that was very inspirational to Ernesto Che Guevara, seeing the poverty all over Nuestra America, but especially in a country as impoverished as Honduras, which is coined the first banana republic. What I want to do is I want to play a clip. This is from Telesur English. This is a news basically that the new Libre government of Xiomara Castro recognizes the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, the legitimate government of Venezuela prior to Xiomara. Under the 12 years of National Party dictatorship, the Honduran government didn't recognize Venezuela. They also recently recognized Juan Guaido, which is some opportunist, fake coup plotter, criminal who declared himself president. Nobody gave a fuck about him. Nobody recognizes him. Honduras, unfortunately, recognized him under the National Party. So now Xiomara recognizes the legitimate socialist government of Venezuela. So I'm going to play this clip, and then we'll go to Raymond to talk about what this means for international politics and for Honduras.
I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela restored diplomatic relations with Honduras, following Xiomara Castro's swearing-in as the new female president of that Central American country. The first step to reestablish relationships between both nations was taken by Venezuela, with the arrival of the official delegation sent by President Nicolás Maduro to participate in the presidential inauguration ceremony. Shortly after arriving in Tegucigalpa, the head of the Venezuelan delegation, Governor of Miranda State, Héctor Rodríguez, stated that the first thing of this country would do was to send a new ambassador in order to restore political relations and the ideas of unity. Rodríguez, who was accompanied by Foreign Minister Félix Plasencia, Vice Minister Rander Peña, and the Minister of Women Margaret Godoy, announced that Godoy will be the new ambassador in Honduras.
These embassies receive in terrible conditions. Unfortunate what the farce does, what the deception does. Today we have rescued the diplomatic relations of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela with the Honduran people, with the democracy that has become president, this great woman from Latin America. Today our diplomatic relations are re-established, and together we will create a clear path for the unity of Latin America, the unity between Honduras and Venezuela, between our people. It is a wonderful moment, Governor, to rescue this moment and to break definitely with that deception. It is a day of celebration, a day of great celebration, a day of solidarity. We must remember Commander Chavez and recognize the commitments. Thanks to all.
One of the beautiful aspects about that is when the coup happened in 2009, Comandante Hugo Chavez was one of the first presidents immediately within minutes to mobilize, to speak out against the coup, even hosting Manuel Zelaya for a short time. And there is a long history of solidarity between the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the left-wing forces in Honduras. Compañero Raymond, why don't you talk a little bit about what this means? Because this is a major shift, right? We're talking about Honduras under the National Party, mainly dominated by the U.S., right? Recognizing, quote unquote, Israel, trading with Taiwan and these right-wing reactionary countries, and now recognizing Venezuela, hopefully recognizing the People's Republic of China, and Cuba and Nicaragua. Your thoughts, Raymond, on the international politics of Libre?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think the waters are coming back to normal. That's the right thing to do. We all know the relationship that Venezuela had with Honduras when President Chavez was in power. And then the decision that Juan Orlando Hernandez and before even him, Pepe Lobo, decide to bajarse los pantalones con Estados Unidos y con Israel, and start like just doing whatever they wanted to do. I mean, with Honduras. Honduras is a poor country right now, but we're not poor. They stole our stuff, and that's why they make us poor. We have so much rations. But then by going back to the relationship with Venezuela, Honduras is just showing that they are going back to the real Honduras that we all want. Honduras should have a relationship with all the countries that respect our country and respect our rights. If United States wants to have a great relationship with Honduras, we should have the relationship, but not based on whatever they want us to do. We have a military bases in Honduras, but I always said, what do we get in exchange? Nothing, absolutely nothing. If they wanted to have those bases in Honduras, which they're gonna have it pretty much, we should get something. And when I talk about get something, first of all, we should get the respect that we deserve as a country, and not allowing United States, not other countries of the world, to intervene in our politics as United States did in 2017, backing up the biggest fraud election that I ever have memory of, and backing up Juan Orlando Hernandez for another 4 years. So Honduras, the diplomacy of Honduras should always be, we can be friends as long as you respect us. And we will allow you to be here as long as we get something. We got over 1.5 million of Hondurans in the United States. What can my compatriotas in the United States can get in exchange so you can still remain here? Give them a TPS to the 1 million Honduras, and the other 200,000, they have the oldest TPS, give them the green card. We have over here so many workers that want to come to the United States, 200,000 per year, that we can get a work permit. Let them go to work legally with a visa, worker's visa, and let them work for a year or so they can make some extra money, help their families, and come back home. Something, we need to get some benefits. So for me, it's just, we're not going to go against the United States. We can't do that because we are not Cuba. Cuba was already set up in their system, and they support all the things that the United States and the rest of the world have done to Cuba, because they already had an structure. We don't. So we cannot say we're going to go against the United States and we're going to be okay. No, we'd be lying if that happened. But we can ask for respect to be independent country. I mean, that's all we really need, is to be respected as a country and to be allowed to do our own thing. We are Hondurans, and this is a Hondurans issue, and we're going to deal with it as Hondurans. We don't want no one else to get involved in our decisions, as they've been doing it for years and years, using Honduras as a patio trasero. As I always say that phrase, since the 70s and the 80s, they've been using Honduras as a potrero, the United States. I mean, I think we deserve respect as a country.
That's such a great point, compañero Raymond. It comes down to soberanía, to sovereignty, to dignity, and not allowing our nation to be used as a platform, like you said. And I think that's a great point, because people oftentimes forget that during the 70s and the 80s, while the rest of Central America had these huge uprisings and revolutions, we're talking about Nicaragua, El Salvador with the FMLN, Guatemala with the Mayan indigenous revolution. Honduras at that time was used as the base of basically imperialism, and the contras were trained there. That's where the drug money was being transferred, and the U.S. used it as a platform of horrible atrocities, and it's just really disgusting to see that. So I think we would like to see Honduras free of that, free of the drug trade, right? No more U.S. drug money coming through our country. No more military bases, no more mining extractivist companies, no more sweatshops, maquilas, all this stuff that I think is a great point. Comrade Libre, your analysis of the international direction, the new international direction of Honduras under this progressive new government.
First of all, again, I want to share this slide. And also, I want to point out something in the video that maybe folks didn't understand, but it's important to give context. Xiomara's presidential sash was a light blue. In Honduras, they have now, under El Partido Libre, changed the flag back to the original color that it was. So if you look at por ejemplo, right, Comrade Ramiro's shirt has the navy blue color. That was not the original flag of Honduras. The original flag was a turquoise blue flag that has been used by the Partido Libre to represent a historical moment, a change from a narco dictatorship to a move towards an independent Honduras that is reflective of a more internationalist approach, a more universal Central American unification that, for example, Francisco Morazan was pushing towards, right? Where Central American countries would work alongside each other, exactly. And so there's so much important symbolism that for the people of Honduras has been important, right? It looks like a small detail to us, but for the folks that have been fighting, right? These are firm and material changes that represent the sacrifices that have been made. Now, in terms of internationalism, we understand the contradictions that exist, right? For example, at the toma de posición, right, Kamala Harris was there. And we have to be clear. Kamala Harris works under imperialism. She is not someone that is revolutionary. And so we have been in talks with comrades here, right, about some of the contradictions that still exist. For Bukele was there, right? Someone that is intentionally oppressing the country of El Salvador, right? And so we were talking about with Salvadorian comrades about the fight there that they have against Bukele, who has access and is rooted in marketing, right? And so the image that he paints to the international community is one that gives the impression that there's a move towards democracy under Bukele, which is a lie. And there's a popular movement that is not being talked about a lot. Central America in general doesn't get a lot of attention because it's overexploited and underestimated. And so Honduras now in the international light, right, has a stage that it can have with an international audience to have accountability to el pueblo hondureño, right, to do the things that the people have been fighting and organizing for. And the international committee, or the international community that was present, right? We can also make observations. Yes, Kamala Harris was there, right? But when Cuba was there, and when they announced Cuba, and when they announced the Venezuelan representative and the Libyan representatives, people were a lot more excited, right? There was a reaction. The people understanding that these are countries that have always recognized that Honduras was a contradiction where the government wasn't representing the people. And so this represents an opportunity for Honduras to begin to concretize and formalize relationships with countries that have always recognized the fact that Honduras should be for Hondureños, Hondureñas, Hondureñas, and not under imperialism. Also, Honduras has the largest U.S. military base in Central America. And so what does that mean? Now, historically speaking, Honduras has always been used as a platform to take advantage of Central America in general. And so this is also a move away from a firm relationship with the U.S. Yes, there still is going to be a relationship, right? But it's that relationship doesn't have to develop. The relationships that do have to develop are the ones with Cuba, with Venezuela, with Nicaragua, countries that recognize not only the sovereignty, but can also offer solutions to resolve the issues of everyday working class Hondurans. In the same way that Nicaragua has been able to resolve extreme poverty and food sovereignty, these are things that can be offered to the people of Honduras. And now it has a platform to actually be implemented and to develop a country that lacks infrastructure, not because the people do not want it, but because the government has been using funds irresponsibly to the benefit of the working, to the benefit of the bourgeoisie that exists in Honduras. And so as internationalists, being here and being able to observe and talking with other people in other countries, this is absolutely not a movement, and again, a process where Honduras is now in a position to move and develop conversations that have already been happening, right? Hondurans, working class Hondurans have already been talking with Nicaragua. Now, the government can support the conversations that have been happening to move theory to action and to begin to desarrollar and develop a Honduras that has the infrastructure so that Hondurans don't have to leave the country to have quality of life. They can stay here, they can have jobs here, right? They can feel like they're safe. And I think that is the most important thing, that Hondurans are able to stay here and to build the country that they live in and have been fighting for.
Beautifully said, Comrade Libre. And I'm glad you mentioned the different reception, because obviously Kamala Harris was there. Nobody really gave a fuck about her. It was kind of, from what I heard as well, she kind of invited herself. And it wasn't like they were like super keen on inviting the US. She kind of invited herself to make it seem like, oh, I'm working on immigration in Central America. So being here, it'll look like I'm doing something. And it's interesting because when Kamala Harris came up when they introduced her, the people in the crowd were chanting, take Ho with you. Ho is the last president, Juan Orlando Hernandez. And it's interesting because it wasn't a respectful thing. Like the masses who were there, they didn't give a fuck about her. They were just saying, take your right-wing stooge with you. I'm going to play this clip real quick. Again, take Ho with you, and that's when Kamala Harris was mentioned and introduced. So, right, just like Libre was saying, not a respectful, rightfully so, not a respectful relationship because of the long history of U.S. imperialism. Compañera Aminta, before in talking about that, right, I think one thing that's interesting to mention, you got to meet the daughter of Berta Cáceres as well as Comrade Libre as well. Maybe talk a little bit about the difference between like bourgeois feminism embodied in somebody like Kamala Harris, who in the U.S. is upheld as this like progressive feminist, even though she represents bourgeois feminists, versus campesina feminism that you see in Nicaragua, but also in Honduras as well, with the women who are behind this revolutionary movement. I think okay. I think their internet froze, which is why okay, yeah, the internet froze. So we'll go back to them. Again, one of the reasons why we need good internet in Honduras. But compañero Raymond, what I want to do actually, you know what? I want to play a clip. This is from a recent brawl within the Honduran Congress that took place. I want to play this and get your reaction about what are some of the contradictions taking place within the party now. So, compañero Raymond, why don't you walk us through what has been going on with the Congress? Because I've been seeing it in the news a lot. Then the beautiful Libre flag that they were holding up in the Congress, there was that brawl that took place. What exactly happened? Walk us through some of the internal traiciones that we can talk about.
Yeah, can you hear me clear? Can you confirm first?
Yeah, I hear you. We hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't hear the audio of the video, but I knew what happened. The situation that happens in Congress, Ramiro, we're going to have to kind of see it a little bit more deeper. This is not something that one day in the morning, Jorge Calix, Beatriz Valle, El Chele Castro, and the other compañeros de Libre decide that we are going to go and try to do this. To me, this is something that it was being planned from way, way, way before. And it hurts me deeply inside because I have such a great relationship with Beatriz Valle, and I never thought someone like her will betray our Partido Libre and betray Xiomara and betray Zelaya. From Jorge Calix, I never had such a good vibe. I never believed in him. He was a pure showman. I know the money that he uses in his campaign came from the Atalas and from other sources. But that is a clear signal that Partido Libre, Xiomara, Mel Zelaya, and the others have to be aware of, that there's going to be more people infiltrating the Partido Libre to try to stop this Revolution Party to take control. That's what I say. We have to be patient with this government. Xiomara is not going to make magic. I saw all the ministros and secretarias who they name. We're going to have to give them the benefit of the doubt. We're going to have to wait to see the development of their work, if they are really truly the right ones, or if some of these people not going to do the job. I don't care who is in any leadership, secretary of the government. What I want is that whoever is there, first, to not go and steal, to not steal our money, to not steal people's money. Second of all, do your work. If you're not going to do your work, is silly because you're going to be making money by not working. So in other words, we're going to have to be patient, but we're going to have to be very vigilant that whoever is in any public position right now in this government is doing the work. If he's not doing the work, we're going to have to take him away and put someone else who's going to do the work. So this situation in the Congress was being planned. It was the plan B, because the plan A obviously was supposedly take another 4 years of power with Tito Asfura. It didn't work. But their plan B was getting gente from Libre to actually lead this other attack from the Congress. So that way, not allowing Xiomara to really have full power in the government, and first to put in jail all these people from since the golpe de Estado to the last day of power on the 27th. The vast majority of them have to go to jail, some in Honduras and some here in the United States, leading from Juan Orlando Hernandez. So what they were trying to do, which colleagues have been saying, in other words, is the why we're going to have to send these people to the United States when legally we can process them here. So trying to literally say, Juan Orlando, we're going to do our best for you not to go to New York, and the other people involved in narcs. So we were infiltrated. This was not one day to another thing. This was planned. That's a lot of millions from the narc and from the state money that is being invested in this literally plan that is going to fail, because the people is already sick and tired of it, and they're not going to allow these idiots to try to manipulate the Congress and take over.
Well said, compañero Raymond. I'm glad you mentioned that. And even former President Juan Orlando Hernandez, this is from The Guardian, Honduran presidents fall from grace poised to end in U.S. indictment. This is somebody, again, his brother was a drug trafficker. His campaign took money from El Chapo Guzman in Mexico. This guy, man, he is somebody who directly was involved in the drug trade. The president, imagine the president of the country, and carried out brutal murders and violence against activists, and nothing, not a peep from mainstream media just until now. So it's something that is crazy. Yet again, on the other hand, they have the gall to accuse President Maduro of being a drug trafficker and all this. But yet the real drug trafficker is the National Party and the dictators. Comrades, we have just a few minutes left, and I want to respect your time because I know you guys have other things to do. Just to wrap up here, what I want to do is I want to play a clip. This is a beautiful poem that was written by compañero Raymond, who's joining us right now, called Azul y Blanco, White and Blue, which are the colors of the Honduran flag, the Central American flags. And the poem is in Spanish, so my apologies for the English-only comrades who are watching, listening. But afterwards, maybe Raymond can tell us, translate a little bit for us in English afterwards, what it's about, what it means to him, and then we'll get some final reactions from Libre and Aminta on their trip to Honduras. I'm going to play this, and then we'll wrap up.
Azul y blanco. Desde el cielo veo tu mirada caída en dirección a las tímidas montañas. Las tibias lágrimas de tu alma quebrada cobijan tus noches de nostalgia. Sumida en este limbo ensangrentado, tu mente se empaña, cargado de ilusiones, y en lentos quebrantos sigues a paso lento pero firme. No se escucha el tic-tac del reloj, solo el soplo de una incesante imaginación. Llueve agua de pasión tristemente mezclada con dolor. La lluvia es cálida, mas la injusticia no te trae calor. Ese calorcito tibio de mi antigua patria y su verdor. El recuento de los daños y el pasar del tiempo develan los crueles engaños del mismo sol al desierto. y el caprichoso ego va devorando al dictador. El calor aprieta y el dolor aumenta. Partículas de mi tierra como carbón encendido. La brisa y el viento alivian la temperatura, pero tus ojos secos ya no suplican por tanta desventura. Agua viva corre por tus hendiduras. Hoy yace el luto en tu alma. Sé en mi nostalgia y en el azul cielo. 100 palomitas blancas vuelan con la esperanza de que no todo se ha perdido. Se vive la tristeza allí en tu suelo, cuando ellas consternadas siguen su ruta. 100 palomitas que solo van dejando plumas y estelas de los sueños por los que aún luchamos. Mientras pasan las nubes, saludan al sol y besan la luna. Por la paz y el amor, que lleguen cantando y que no se detenga ninguna. Un corazón murió, pero va renaciendo, tu alma inmutando firme, de frente ante la maldita vecindad, la maldita destrucción. Una pluma muere en el grito de un cañón, a ella le siguen buscando, y aunque parezca que cayó en un fango, hoy una pluma muere para que mañana renazca un crayón.
A beautiful poem. I wasn't able to play the full thing because it was a little bit longer. But again, this is a poem written by our very own compañero Raymond Sánchez. I'm not sure if Raymond was able to hear it because I saw you kind of fidgeting with it. But the important thing is that everybody else heard it. But you wrote it, so you so you know how it goes. But compañero Raymond, why don't you tell us a little bit about like what the poem's about, especially for our English only speaking comrades, what it's about and why you decided to write that.
Well, thank you. I couldn't see it. My browser lost connection, and I really wanted to like see it because I haven't seen it for a while. But a little bit is the reminiscence of myself, of my country, as I remember my country when I was a kid, and being in the distance, fighting from the distance. I haven't been able to go to Honduras since 2000. I had death threats from Partido Nacional, gangs. And then this poem was actually a feeling of saying that when they killed Wendy, who was a writer, una poeta, that they can, dice, pueden matar una pluma, pero nace un crayón, meaning they can kill one of us, but there's plenty of us that are gonna surface, they're gonna come. And also I wanted to like send a clear message of the people fighting in the struggles and the victims of this fight, as Beta Cáceres and other compañeras y compañeros that die for this cause, and also for the political prisons to be released. So it was a little bit of mixture of everything and expressing that we still have hope to get our, as the compañero Libre says, our colors back. White and blue, blue and white, but the real turquesa blue, you know? Por eso dice azul y blanco. Y no, I couldn't have no images to use the real blue, so unfortunately I had to use those to have the video. And I have the cooperation of a Colombian poet, Jaime Rigo, who is the voice that you guys hear there. But pretty much it was like a mixed feelings of being in the distance, not being able to do nothing but to write. My fight has been in two fronts from the distance, compañeros. One was usando mi pluma I've been writing articles for magazines and for newspapers in Honduras criticizing the government direct, writing songs, and also collecting money to help the movement. The movements that you guys saw on the streets, they needed food, they needed water, they needed vinagre, they needed a lot of stuff. So the work that we did here was really titanic, trying to get money to send to our compañeros over there. And then the nacionalistas were saying that that movement was being financed by Venezuela. Yeah, so we're all Venezuelan then, because we're the Hondurans from Libre. We're the ones literally doing the work behind scenes. So, I mean, that's why for me it was so personal when I write poems like this. I have plenty of others. I got one that is called Libertad, where it speaks about what just happened this Inauguration Day, where I also mentioned La noche es larga al final, pero Morazán vigila, going back to the famous poem from Pablo Neruda. And it was a mix of, I reminisce my country. I want my country to be free. I don't want no more dead compañeras and compañeros. I don't want no more prisoners, political prisoners. So it was a little bit of that. So I hope I can explain. But when you write, you just let yourself go.
Beautiful. So amazing, compañero Raymond. And anybody who wants to watch that full poem, just look up Azul y Blanco and Raymond Sánchez on YouTube. It'll come up. We can send you the link as well. Really amazing stuff. And I think it's so beautiful. Comrade Libre is also a poet and a writer too. And also has some amazing work. Let's just get some final thoughts from you, Libre. Your recap overview. How do you feel now that you are in Honduras for this historic event? What are you taking with you?
Will be as brief as possible. First of all, again, like art and culture are part of the success of this movement, right? Like there are songs that the camera was playing at the beginning, right? These aren't just things, right? Art holds a political line. And so intentionally, what is the art doing? How is propaganda either supporting people or moving against people? Imperialism is really good at using propaganda to separate, right? And what Partido Libre has done is used the popular movement, right? The faults of a government that is sponsored by the U.S., right? And really pointing out the differences of what Honduras can be or what Honduras has been, right? And so what has been is no longer a thing, right? Now Honduras is in a process where it's moving where it can go and where it can do for your everyday working class Honduran. I think it's also important to understand, and I'm just gonna keep on saying this. First of all, like we as internationalists have a duty to support Hondurans in this and then some, right? Because this is the beginning of the process, and honestly, unfortunately, this was the easy part, right? To celebrate the victories. Now is the hard work of fulfilling the tasks that have been requested and that are expected of this government. So this is a popular movement where people are asking for specific things and have demands, and it is the duty of the pueblo hondureño to hold El Partido Libre responsible, but also to fight against U.S. interventionism to allow for the development to happen, so that we don't have to so that our task of fighting against the imperialist lies that are going to be told to push back against this movement, because it does not benefit the U.S. It benefits Hondurans, right? Our task is to fight against imperialism, because there are going to be lies that are told, and la cuestión de los diputados, right? The 20 diputados that tried to create division between Partido Libre before they took office, right? This is something that we can expect to happen again and more, because there are these contradictions. The reality that exists, that Honduras is moving where it needs to go, but There are people that don't want that to happen, that have access to a lot of resources. And again, the largest military base in Central America is in Honduras. And so we have to keep these things in mind and be principled enough to support Partido Libre, to allow them the space to develop for Honduras. And also we recognize that that we also cannot say that this was simply an election that was won passively. Again, like the comrade had shared in his poem, Wendy died. When we went to the toma de posición, there was a mother whose son was killed, right, by the narco dictatorship. There are people that have been in prison, that were in prison for 2 years. There are people that are still in prison, right? The political prisoners are still in prison that need to be let out. And these are this is one of the demands that are being asked, right? To release the people that under the dictatorship were put into prison because of the position that they played in moving for Honduras and against the narco dictatorship. And the other thing that I want to comment is, we have to recognize that we cannot fall into the unprincipled thing of thinking that Xiomara, is in such a powerful position just because she's a woman, right? Xiomara is in the position because she is a revolutionary, right? And this is also a thing that we cannot lose sight of because, for example, the contradiction, Kamala Harris was there. Just because Kamala Harris is a woman does not make her revolutionary. She is against the people, and she puts people in prison, and she supports imperialism. She is not revolutionary just because she's not revolutionary at all, right? And so when we do have people that are revolutionary, there's going to be dirt thrown on their names, but they hold a particular class line, which is and addresses the particular contradiction of the thing that we have to overcome, which is imperialism. So just identifying as woman or just identifying as Boricua, it doesn't make me revolutionary. What does make me revolutionary is fighting for the people and against imperialism and holding that line to move and create a socialist society that moves eventually towards communism. And I am super excited to say that we have to continue to learn about Honduras and the history of Honduras, because it is one that helps to inform not only the history of Central America, but the history of the wars that have been fought in favor of imperialism. I've learned so much here from comrades from Frente Obrero, from Los Necios, from the youth movements, and I've met with Marxist-Leninists, and I cannot tell you how beautiful it is, and I understand that a few years ago, if I would have come here, I would not have been able to have the same dialogue that I'm having with taxi drivers or with people, or even to meet with these people in one place, because I would have been kidnapped, for example, which is something that has happened in the past with people, right? And so I'm very humbled that the Honduran people have not only made me feel at home and safe, but that I've been able to have amazing dialogue and build with comrades that have been in this fight and that are dedicated to building this and seeing the vision through. This is a process. Honduras is in a position to concretely address the issues of Hondurans. That is a beautiful thing that did not come passively, right? This is something that came out of sacrifice, and we have to recognize that. And so I am just, thank you to El Pueblo Hondureño, thank you to Partido Libre, and the people that are holding El Partido Libre accountable to things that it said it's going to do, and we're going to do our job to support them.
Thank you so much, Comrade Libre. Beautiful words. And as Comrade Salifu, shout out to Comrade Salifu, by the way. Libre always bringing that real. Of course, as always, shout out to Compañero Yamir as well, and to Comrade Big Teal. And final thoughts from you, Compañera Aminta. your lessons learned, your experience, what are you bringing back to Nicaragua? How do you feel being at this very historic moment?
I think, on my end, it has been such an honor to be able to learn alongside the Hondureños. This week has been, very busy doing a lot of revolutionary work, and embedded within all of that is having the opportunity to learn more about the history of Honduras, learn more about that struggle que está tan encarnado, right, in its people's history, and further, really now having those connections, really knowing people face to face, knowing, what kind of work needs to be done in order to continue to push this inspiring and revolutionary historical period. I think that also one thing that I'm going to definitely take home too is, no one can stop Central America. No one can stop Latin America. Our people have been fighting. Our people have this history for generations. And I remain more certain than ever that we will be able to continue to fight against U.S. imperialism as empire crumbles, as currently amidst Honduras having this historic win, Nicaragua continuing its revolution with the election of Ortega. The U.S. government is trying to, start a proxy war in Ukraine. They've continued to still abandon working class people there, and I really more than anything, really urge folks that are watching, folks that, maybe you don't have that direct tie to Latin America, but it doesn't matter, because as internationalists, all of us are in the same struggle. We are all part of the international working class. All of us at one day or another, I think that for La Toma de Posesión, for the inauguration, at that moment, I felt Honduran on that day, because I understand that this is a struggle that is also representative for my people. And it's the same way that, when the Venezuelan embassy was opened up, it's the same way that, when I sit in the Venezuelan embassy in DC for 2 weeks, like in those moments, like I felt Venezuelan. And it's because, that's part of being an internationalist. It's knowing that this struggle transcends borders, that this struggle, if one of our countries is struggling against tyranny, is struggling against military intervention, is struggling against economic sanctions, media warfare, all of these things, the way that imperialism operates now has changed. These things morph, and they will have different techniques to try to keep us down, but we're not going to let them keep us down. And we see that with this election. We see that with, even in countries that, they might not be there yet. I was talking to comrades from El Salvador, from Guatemala, especially, from Panama, from, especially Nicaragua, I think too, talking from folks from Costa Rica. There are places where you might not have that much coverage because people think that Central America is a monolith. They think that oftentimes we're just even so an extension of Mexico, Quick anecdote. One time I had a teacher who was like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm from Nicaragua." And she was like, dead ass. She was like, "What part of Mexico is that in?" This was a teacher. And so I really want to combat that. I want to combat that because we have our own very unique histories. And in spite of it, not necessarily being the same, we do still have the same enemy. It is fighting against neoliberalism. It is fighting against, these private corporations that are pushing an imperialist agenda. And so I'm just so excited. I feel like this month of January, for me, on a more personal note, has been so rejuvenating in the sense that I have been able to meet so many people in a considerably short amount of time. And every single conversation that I've had, I've always learned something new. And so for myself, especially as a new addition to Troika as well, I'm so excited to be able to aportar, to be able to continue that struggle. And more than anything, we're going to be here fighting against U.S. imperialism. We're going to be here fighting to have food sovereignty, not just, in Nicaragua, but in all of Latin America and hopefully all of the world. We're going to be here fighting to make sure that, people in unions are protected, that people's labor rights are reaffirmed, that people have access to housing, that people have access to healthcare. All of these struggles are united, right? And the more that we're able to work through these internal contradictions together, to be able to address also those external contradictions, the more we will be able to have more success. So this fight is not going to be easy, but we know already that it's not going to be easy. But you know, we have that energy, we have that potential, and that is what really gives me so much confidence and gives me so much strength at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, compañera Aminta. Beautifully said, beautiful words. I've also had very similar experiences as well. Viva Libre, Viva Honduras. Compañero Raymond, any last final thoughts from you, brother? Thank you so much again for joining. Any last quick thing you want to say before we head out? Okay. Oh, no. No, I can't hear you.
Can you?
Now I can hear you.
Car actually, and I just wanted to thank you for the invitation, and a compañera y el compañero. I appreciate you guys are doing a great job in Honduras. I feel humbled to know that you are not Hondurans and you are in Honduras, and that is really good feeling. Unfortunately, I couldn't come to the inauguration, but I appreciate you being there, and thank you for sharing this moment with us and your opinion, your ideas, and I hope it's not the last time that we have this chat, and hopefully next time I have a little better internet because I'm in the street right now, and I've been having some issues, but I really wanted to appreciate, like she said, our compañera is not going to be easy. It's going to be tough to like keep on going, and all I wanted the way to close. I wanted to close this with I hope that Manuel Zelaya Rosales, Xiomara y todos los líderes from Partido Libre look our neighbor Salvador and remember the FMLN, and not to make the same mistakes, because it's easy to just drop the whole thing. It was so hard to get there. Now the hardest part is to stay there, stay in power, and not to make the mistakes that they made in Salvador.
Yeah,
that's all I want to say. Thank you.
That's such a great point, compañero Raymond. You know, the same. I totally agree. Once the FMLN came, it's such a beautiful, long history of struggle, and then once they got there, you know, unfortunately, there was a lot of mistakes and errors, and certain people who shouldn't have been there. But we'll see. You know, I'm optimistic, and I think that the best is to come. Viva Presidenta Xiomara Castro Zelaya, Viva Libre. Thank you so much to the comrades, to Raymond, to Libre, to Aminta. Also, I just want to give a shout out to Troika Kollective as well, that has been sending these comrades out and need support. So follow Troika on social media to support, because again, these trips cost money, and it's important to build solidarity and have people on the ground. So just wanted to mention that as well. Thank you to everybody for watching and listening. We're going to go out to Mi Tierra, Honduras, some music from Mi Tierra Natal de Honduras. Thank you so much, everybody. Long live Libre, long live Xiomara Castro Zelaya. Have a great week. Take care, comrades. Peace out.